It's recording. Here we are, Jack.
There we are.
All right. Hello. Welcome to the Soul's Kitchen podcast. I'm here with Jack Youssef,
Hi.
Lebanese man.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a little fuzzy there, but that's all right. You look good. Must just be me. Anyway, welcome to the Soul's Kitchen. Thank you, Jack.
Well,
your
thanks for
time.
having me.
So on the Soul's Kitchen podcast, I want to talk to people who are living their soul's purpose or desire.
Mhm.
And I thought of you. You want to know why I thought of you?
I'd love to.
Okay. Well, when we were kids, I remember you as a kid, and you were always saying, I remember you going around saying, well, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Mhm.
And I was impressed because who knows at whatever age that was, young,
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
maybe
very
even
young.
7 or 8,
Yeah.
saying that. So I just remembered that. And of course, I know you in the community. I've known you since then. So
Yeah.
hello, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
So you are a lawyer.
I am.
And so tell us that story.
Well, I've been a lawyer for about 28 years almost.
Okay.
And I thought it was completely normal that your parents just told you what you were going to do.
Ah, interesting.
So when my friends were all stressing about what they were going to do for a living, since I was 5, my dad said, because I was always joking around, my dad would have me come in. He said, I talk too much. So he said I had to become a lawyer or a garbage man. And of course, in that time, it was in the 70s, like late 70s.
Right.
So I was watching Fame at the time. Do you remember Fame?
Yes, I do.
And I wanted to
wanted
live
to be
forever.
a dancer. I did
I
too.
wanted to learn how to fly high.
Right.
Yeah. So I told my dad I wanted to be like a Fame dancer. And this is me
Mhm.
at 7 or 6 or 5.
Oh, you probably didn't like that.
And no, he said lawyer or garbage man. And so I stuck with lawyer. And honestly, like all through high school, all through everything, I really never gave it a second thought.
Okay.
As crazy as that sounds.
You know what? That is so cool because, I mean, it must be fulfilling you in some way.
Anything that my father, my father's he's one of those rare
one
ones,
of those
right?
People. Okay.
So when he gave you his attention or his direction or his approval, it really, it's not like he loved us all very much and stuff. But when you got that nod, that wink, or that acknowledgement, that was more, addictive than anything you could ever get on any market.
That's cool.
So yeah, we always did stuff. I mean, to give my dad something for Christmas, let's say, for example, and he'd like electronic and take it out and play with it all day, that was a true win.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
But I did all kinds of other things too. Like lawyer was what I was going to do to make my money.
Yeah.
And then everything else was going to be what I was going to do for fun. So I got into everything. Theater, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
But always sticking with the lawyer, like being a lawyer.
Lawyer was the occupation.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to get A's in school. I knew I had to, we had a service station. Remember the service station?
I do.
Well, I started working there like full time when I was 11. I was pumping gas. I remember I used to have to bring out a step ladder to check people's oil because I wasn't much taller than I am now, or shorter.
Right.
And I was like a little kid, and I'd work every day after school. I'd be at work pumping gas and changing tires. I could barely even lift a tire, and I was changing tires.
Wow.
Yeah.
But so you just had that, but you got that work ethic though, I think too.
Yeah, I think we all did. We were first generation Lebanese people. So I find that when you have any type of people that come into a country, like that first generation are the ones that the parents kind of really suffer to give their kids a chance.
Right.
And the smart kids, absolutely. And the smart kids take advantage of that chance. And then they kind of more adapt into the society they go into. There used to be a joke that they didn't let Lebanese people play hockey in the 70s because every time we'd go into a corner, we'd open a store.
Oh, I remember that joke.
Yeah. And it still circulates every once in a while.
Well, do you want to know why Lebanese people are so good at business?
Why?
So I'm 3rd generation Lebanese. So my great grandfather was the first Lebanese here.
Oh, wow. And that must have been in the early 60s or late 50s?
No, we're talking late 1800s.
Oh, wow. That's very early.
It is early. So because I researched this, and I'll give you the piece of paper.
I can't wait.
So that's what they were allowed to do when they got here.
Yeah.
They were allowed, one of the things they were allowed to do, and I shouldn't say allowed to, but allowed to do easily without a lot of paperwork, was become a peddler. So that's what they did. My great grandmother and my grandmother.
They're definitely good at it, I bet.
Well, they were, because that's how they had to make a living.
Yeah.
So they would travel around in different communities and sell their wares. Basically, I call them the original Walmart, which basically they were. So Lebanese, it's not that Lebanese people, yes, they're good at business, but it's sort of one of the things that they did originally when they got here. They had to be good at it to survive.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from their Phoenician background.
Yes.
Like they were seafaring people.
Well, this is true.
So everything was negotiation.
Yeah.
Everything was I mean, even now I go to Lebanon quite a bit, and even now anything that you do is very much a song and dance. Like here, you'd go into a store and buy a pack of gum.
Right. And
you put the gum on the counter. They tell you how much and you pay for it.
Right.
You can go into any store and be a complete stranger, and you still need to, you know, bless the day. Ask them how their family are. Right. Before you buy the gum, there's like a 5-minute exchange of niceties that almost are like required. Negotiation, I remember going there with my mom when I was younger and going to buy Vanessa, my wife, a bottle of perfume. And I'm one of those people that picks a price in their head, and that's just what I pay. Just because I grew up with the whole negotiating thing.
Right.
And I remember the guy telling me how much it was, and I said, okay. And then he got upset because I wasn't going to haggle with him. And I was there with my mother. And so I haggled with him. And of course, as soon as I pick a lower price, he's like, how am I going to feed my kid? It was all back and forth. It was very much a show. It was very enjoyable. And that's the way Lebanon is to me. It is a country of peddlers, but in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Oh yeah, in a good way. But I just thought I'd throw that in there.
They are definitely the original Walmart here.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it was my great grandmother who did the peddling, because the people took to her better because she was a woman, and I guess my great grandfather was a little bit rough.
What did they sell? Like, what did they kind of
whatever
they could
thread, whatever material, whatever they could carry on their back, really. And
it's hard to imagine what it must be like to like leave your country of origin to come to a strange land in order to give more to your family, right?
Right. So I look at it this way: someone had to be first. I mean, they were the first here. Yeah. Someone else was the first in Moncton. Someone else was the first in St. John.
Right.
Another Lebanese man was the first in Miramichi. So here's the other part of that story, and that's why I want to ask you if you know. There's a question I have. So they first came through Ellis Island and they went to Virginia. There's a whole bunch of people in Richmond, Virginia who look like me.
Yeah.
And I haven't met them yet.
Wow. Yeah. I think it's time you take a visit.
I know. I think I would just go and fit.
Like I said, seafaring people, wherever they go, there are children.
I know. So they're there. But for some reason, my great grandfather came up here. And the question we have in our family: why did he come here? Nobody knows. Yeah. One of the stories is he had to get away from all the other Lebanese people because he was going there and they were all coming there. So that's one of the stories.
He wanted to peddle somewhere else.
He just wanted to, yeah. But that would have been hard. You imagine to get here from there and then to start.
Yeah.
To
be the first.
And I don't know. Again, I don't mean to be talking about my family, but I just don't know if you know some of these things.
The stories tie in. Like my family came here to follow their family.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So I'm curious about how your family got here. And what did they know, before they got, or when they got here? Because my family, they had to live in Devon. They had to live on the north side.
Yeah.
And the first time they were allowed to if they had a store, they had to put it on the north side.
We were in the same boat. My father moved here in the 70s. We lived in Devon.
Okay. But because you had to, or because?
I'm not sure. I never got those details, but it's interesting that we also started off in Devon, and that was in 1970. I wasn't born yet.
So that was a while after. But anyway,
my aunt Georgette came here in the 60s with her husband Edmond.
Okay.
And she wrote to her brothers about how beautiful Fredericton and Oromocto and stuff were. So she helped. My father was the first to come over with my mom and the 4 kids, and then my aunt Karima.
So four of your siblings were born in Lebanon then?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 4 oldest, and then my brother George. My mother was pregnant with my brother George when they came over, and then I was shortly thereafter.
All right, so you were born here.
Yeah, and then all the siblings came. Like my uncle George came with his family, with another sibling, and then my aunt Karima came with her family, and they all spread out. Like my uncle George was in Taymouth.
Okay.
We ended up in Fredericton. My aunt Karima ended up in Keswick.
Okay.
And then my uncle and my aunt Georgette were already stationed in Oromocto. So they really did spread out. We were together constantly, like every weekend. Do you remember the Lebanese used to go to Woolstock every weekend?
I do, yeah.
Oh my God, 200-300 Lebanese.
Well, they talk about these picnics in that. I mean, that was from before too. That's another thing about the Lebanese I think I love so much is the sense of community and always wanting to be together, sharing food.
It was crazy back then. Like I remember it was before seatbelt laws. So we'd all pile on the back of my father's truck and they'd put the boxes of food and the chicken and the pita bread. And we'd all ride in the back of the truck. I used to play
Right.
Superman. I used to
Yeah,
lay
we used to do
on
the
the
same.
hood of the truck while
Okay.
my siblings held on to my legs on the hood of the truck to
God.
feel like, I was
Yeah.
flying. And then we'd get there, and I remember Abe Corey would bring they used to have activities for the kids,
Yeah.
and just people would
All
cook and
together.
food, and we'd be there till it was dark. Like we'd go in the morning.
Yeah.
The kids would just move around like bumblebees. Yeah, it was a good time.
So when your aunt was the first one here, do you know why she came here?
She came here with her husband Edmond, and I think they just came here for a new start, like to settle it. They, because the Lebanese were already kind of
here,
starting to be established here.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so they must have heard.
and is Edmond, I think, led the drive for them to come.
Right.
So it probably, I would imagine, I don't know this story, but I imagine Edmond had connections with someone that had come before.
Okay.
There was lots of people that were here in the 60s.
There were.
But
there was a couple of waves.
And my family all pretty much came in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then, there's been, Fredericton is very Lebanese heavy.
It is.
Yeah.
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 So obviously, let's get back to your dad and your lawyer. So how did that, so you just knew?
I knew.
You knew, and then, so that was it. You were just going to go to school.
So I did everything else. So the nice thing about knowing I was going to be a lawyer was that I studied everything but the law, because I knew what I was going to do eventually. And I got into all kinds of, my kids still joke about, is there a job that you didn't have? Because I literally did everything. My first business was going down to the store, the goodie shop that was off of Aberdeen, the health store now.
Oh yeah.
And they had it was December, and they had a whole bunch of these wicker calendars that had a Chinese calendars, and they rolled, and they were very pretty. Yeah. But I was like, 9. And it was December, so they were about to expire. So they were like $4, and they had them on for $1. So of course I had a couple bucks. So I bought 2 of them thinking I was going to give one to my mom, and I was going to keep one. But on the way home, I decided that I would sell them. So, back then, going door to door, we used to shovel driveways, we used to rake leaves, anything for a few, when the exhibition would come to town, we'd pack cars. We lived in Aberdeen.
Okay.
So we did all these things because, there was 8 of us, 6 kids, and my parents and my father. We were new immigrants. So pretty much we didn't really ask our parents for money. We went out and found our own needs and wants. My father used to give us the lecture about the things that you needed and the things that you wanted, and to be able to do that analysis to determine whether the juice was worth the squeeze. Right. It's like I used to tell people jokingly that, economics was like beat into my head, like from so young that by like 17, I had a $50,000 credit card because I figured out how I could rack all these points. So my father was buying tires in the fall, and it was stressful because you'd have to buy these tires and then sell them, but you'd have to pay for them in advance. So eventually I was like 17, I was still working there, and I went and got this Visa, and I just kept bumping the limit. So eventually we started buying all of our tires on the Visa. It gave my father 30 days. It gave me a ton of points. And then I started just buying all my Christmas presents with that stuff. Yeah. Smart. So I got into so many hobbies because I knew I was going to be a lawyer. So I studied everything but being a lawyer, like philosophy. Okay. I went to St. Thomas Arts. I had more hobbies than usually one hobby at a time. And I would do them for a couple of years, and then I'd move on to something else because I really didn't know. I had strict rules. Like the hobby couldn't involve me making a living at it. It had to be something that involved more my time than my resources. And it had to be something that a lot of people were doing, so that I could almost appear to excel in something, whether I really excelled in it or not. But always in the back of your mind, you knew you were going to be a lawyer. I did. I find that so fascinating. Yeah. That's great. It was easy, but I was a comedian. I was a stand-up comedian for 3 or 4 years. I had an a cappella group where I sang a cappella for a number of years. I did photography, balloon art, like whatever interests me, it caught my eye. Balloon art was the funniest start. When you say living your soul's purpose, I really think that I was like my father. I'm a wanderer. I'm a storyteller. Okay. My father traveled the world. He's one of the greatest storytellers I've ever met. And he could just capture a room when he came in. If he could stop a dog dead in his tracks, it was so weird. He could just give a look and people would stop talking. Like, this is the kind of command that I didn't want to have, but that I truly appreciated the specialty in it. So, my dad used to do this close-up balloon art, close-up magic. Okay. And these things, but he's one of those guys, if someone did a trick, he would know right away how they did it. Okay. So, my dad I think that my soul's purpose was to be a wanderer and a storyteller, and to do all of these silly things. Like started building sugar cubes. I don't know if you've ever seen my sugar cube houses at Christmas. No. I just get something that interests me, and I dive into it until I move on to something else. When it starts to get serious, I'll pick a new hobby.
Or when it's no longer fun.
No, it's always fun.
Okay.
But I truly, like, anything that becomes something where I could, like, I used to be in an a cappella group.
Okay.
And then someone submitted one of my songs to the East Coast Music Award, and I didn't like that because I mean, I like doing things just for me.
Right.
Then I feel like then I have control of it.
Okay.
And I remember one of the writers, when Jeff Healy was dating one of the girls I went to law school with, and saw one of our performances and wanted me to submit one of my songs to Jeff Healy. And I pretty much stopped singing right pretty much shortly after that. It felt serious to me.
I see.
So when things start to be serious, I usually move on to a new hobby, like the balloon art. I can make myself out of balloons.
Okay.
I can make like my whole body.
Okay.
When I went to Jamaica one time, I left like a balloon image of myself at my desk so that, people wouldn't know that I was gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think that's, that the law thing was what I did to focus. Construction. I even did construction. To me, was a hobby.
Right.
My father always loved construction.
Always good to know those things though too.
Yeah. So I did the Clowater Legacy project on the north side.
Right.
I bought all those properties from the Clowater family.
Yeah.
And I built 2 buildings, but now I've moved on from that. So I've passed the project to another Youssef, and I'm just focusing on, law and right now my current hobby is guitar. I'm teaching trying to learn how to play guitar.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So law, do you think too, because law is kind of serious, or do you have fun with that as well?
It is serious. My work persona and my non-work persona are very opposite of each other, but I always make sure that I keep a little bit of me in everything I do. Like, I always had the philosophy that, like, it doesn't have to be the best burger, but it has to be a consistent burger.
Right.
And the trick is trying to have someone taste the burger in the first place so that they know that that's the burger they want.
Right.
But by the way, I do a lot of this, and when I'm meeting because I meet with thousands of people a year.
Right.
So I do talk a lot in examples.
Okay.
I tell people when they want to know when they can move into their house, I give the analogy that I'm the baker and I need 3 ingredients that I don't control: the flour, the milk, and the eggs. I do a lot of this type of stuff.
No, I like analogies though. I like sort of like that. Yeah. So that's why I say, like,
That's how my dad used to talk. He used to say things like,
that
guy's so cheap that he wouldn't give you his coal. He'd say things like that to me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you guys, growing up, your dad, everyone worked hard. Basically.
Everybody did.
You worked hard. And I know your dad passed not long ago.
The day before they closed the airports for COVID, March 11th, 2020, my father died on March the 10th.
Okay.
So as I'm on the phone, not believing that he's dead in Lebanon, I'm trying to book a ticket, and it was chaos. Well, COVID was just beginning.
Right.
March 11th, and in Lebanon they don't embalm. So like with our culture, Roman Orthodox, they don't embalm. They have to put the body in the family crypt right away, because you basically rot back into the earth.
There, yeah.
So I tried to book a ticket. I couldn't go, and then I sat for 3 years waiting to go see him.
Oh.
So that's why I go a lot.
Okay, you go. Well, that's all right.
I visit him every day.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So
and olive trees and
the
culture and the food.
Yeah.
I sleep where he slept.
Oh, wow.
I eat what he ate. I walk where he walked.
So, okay.
And I get stories every day when I'm there. The people, I could be walking down the street in Lebanon. I feel like the mayor sometimes, because I could be walking down the street and a random stranger just driving by. Well, this has happened to me several times. They'll stop, roll down the window, and they said, "Is Louis Youssef your father?" And I'm like, "How in the hell would you know that?" They say, "You look just like him."
Yeah, you do.
And then they would tell me a story.
Right.
Like one guy told me a story how my father used to do this type of stuff. He'd stop in and visit somebody, and they'd be complaining about something. One guy was telling me that his hot water was complaining about his hot water. And my father went and looked at it and said, "You got this all wrong."
Right.
He goes, "You need this, this, and this, and then it's going to be much better." And the guy goes, "Okay, well, I'll get it and let you know." He goes, "What are you doing right now?" This is a true story. So my father took him out, bought the stuff, brought it back, re-rigged his hot water tank, and now it works much better, and he saves a lot of money. And I said, "I hope to God that you're not thinking of my dad every time you take a shower." This guy, you get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
But I get inundated with this type of story there, because he lived here and there.
He lived here and there.
But he lived there more than he lived here.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, what is it about, sleeping in your dad's bed, going there, like you miss him obviously, and you're, you want to be near him. So that's a place you're going to.
These are his
beads. Yeah.
This is his.
Okay.
And this is his.
Okay.
So these are the things that remind me. And when I'm there, I feel close to him.
Okay. And what about I'm just curious. What about here? I know that there's a strong pull. I get it. I mean, I don't even speak the language and I feel the pull.
It's hard to describe.
I get it.
Because Lebanon has so many things that are frustrating that the average person that's lost touch with the culture or someone that doesn't know it wouldn't like it. Because, I mean, we don't want to have 20 minutes of niceties before we buy a pack of gum here. We don't
it's interesting
want,
you say that.
Yeah, we don't want to have to negotiate with someone for a long time. We don't want to be worried about, like, it almost, you get the feeling that everybody's trying to get you, but all they are people that don't leave meat on the table. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
also,
we take a lot of things for granted.
Do you think there's something about also just even connecting with people? Because I remember my dad always visiting. We always visited when we were young. We had to go see Aunt Mary. We had to go see Aunt Nellie. We had to go see my sister. We had to go see this person. And I remember going, oh my, we have to see all these
proper
people.
Things are very proper. Lebanese people, when they get into a scrap, may not talk for 30 years.
Right.
Like, you know it as well as I do. Everybody's heard about someone said something to the wrong person, or they didn't give the proper blessing when somebody passed away. And then all of a sudden 30 years have passed and they never speak again.
Yeah.
But it's hard to describe. Like, despite all of that, if you're connected to that country and that culture, there's something to be said when you're there. Like, that feeling that you get, you can't describe it. The driving up the mountain, being around what I consider to be of the most resilient people on the planet. Like, I mean, to them, in the middle of all the war and all the craziness and all the stuff that you see on TV here, there, it's just life.
It's just life.
Everybody's, people go around and go about their day, and they still laugh and they still do the things they say, if you wait for a good time to go to Lebanon, you'll never go. It's true.
It's true.
But this is what makes them so amazing as people, is the fact that they're so resilient.
Well, even when you think about them coming here, what they had to go through.
But they never all come. Part of them come here and always try to leave that piece behind.
This is true. Like I said, the other half of my family's in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
And I gotta go.
Yeah. You do have to go.
I am going to go.
And here's the thing about the culture, is that when you do go, when you make that connection, it's instant. Like, then you get absorbed into the hive. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, and there's a, part of a hive here too, right? Like you have, I don't know how your family is, but you live across the street from your brother.
My family believe it or not, most of us have always been in public speaking or out. People know us, but my entire family tree, we're all kind of hermits. Like, I'm the guy that's on the stage with the microphone speaking to 300 people, but then I'm the guy that's gone right afterwards. I could sit up in my, like a Blunar, like I'll sit up in my office upstairs and do Blunar for 6 hours in a row and not think anything of it, or try to learn how to play a song on a guitar, all day just because I enjoy it.
You enjoy it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, no, it's funny because one of my cousins came here, like a younger generation cousin, and we looked so much alike. We were just staring at each other. We were like,
your twin at the airport.
Yeah. So
we tend to look alike culturally, though. Like, I mean,
culturally,
we were very distinct, and our bloodline, like, our nose seems to follow. Like, if you look at the Debleys in Fredericton, they all seem to have the same nose. The Youssefs, a lot of them have the same nose. We all have brown hair. We all have brown eyes. I got a little salt and pepper going on. I'm a leap year baby, and I still remember hearing the story, and I still hear the story of when I was born. They were at the hospital, and they were asking the doctor was asking my parents, do you want his birthday to be the 28th of February or the 1st of March?
Right.
And my mother was like, my mother didn't, whatever they want to do, they're doctors, they listen. And my father, of course, was like, no, he's born on the 29th. You leave his birthday on the 29th. So for years, my mother felt guilt for that and says, you only get one birthday every 4 years. I said, Mom, I get 7 birthdays every 4 years. On the 29th of the leap year, I get that day. And every other year, even Facebook confuses it and says on the 28th, it says, happy birthday, Jack. And on the 1st, it says, happy birthday, Jack. Yeah. But I only celebrate on the 4th year. But I've always had 7 birthdays in 4 years.
Well, there you go.
And I'm only 13 now. So
well, you don't look much older than 13, Jack.
I'm not much taller than a 13-year-old either.
Tell me, how's your kids with the culture and all of that?
Unlike me growing up, it really was important to me to let my kids have some more direction, freedom to have their own direction, because I'll never know whether or not all the things I did were the things I would have done. But I do know that I've really, so far, I've had an amazing ride, and I truly feel blessed. But my kids, I've given them kind of more feel. And like, my daughter was in horseback riding for 10 years and loved it and excelled at it and is, became well known at it. My son has one of the best senses of humor that I've ever seen on a kid. And I'm really proud of who they're becoming. They both have good grades in school without me having to like if I come home with an A, my father would say, why not A+?
Okay.
Why not A+?
But there's two ways that could have gone. Because I think like some people do well with that kind of why not an A+, and other people would it would crush them.
I think that if you felt the way I did about my father, I don't think you ever took it as a negative thing. You took it as like, we knew, like my father was not one of those people that showed a lot of emotion, but when he did, like it was so spectacular that you could bottle it and hold on to that for a long time. And so like the whole lawyer thing, I never told my father I wrestled.
Okay.
Because I wasn't allowed to play sports. Because why would you play sports? That makes no sense. So when I remember one of my coaches was Lebanese in wrestling, Gabby El Khoury.
Oh yeah.
And my dad found out that I was wrestling. I used to be in breakdancing. I never told my father about the things that he would say, what for? He never wanted to hear that. What for? He didn't want to hear that. Okay. But I did those things and I loved those things. It didn't take away from what I wanted to do for him. But it allowed me to like feel the full breadth of what I wanted to do to give. Like, I believe that life is about comfort. Like you're always just trying to achieve comfort. You're doing this podcast because it's checking a box in you. It's giving you,
definitely.
And I believe that people need to like get that comfort and find a way to get it and then minimize the time between them, because there's always going to be time between them.
Right.
So the things that gave me comfort were the things that were, all of my hobbies and, being an extrovert. Like I was always telling jokes. I was always on stage. I was in theater. I did all of those things and they made me feel truly like alive. And still, I'm going to retire early and my wife is terrified because she has no idea, what I'm going to do. But
that's okay. You're okay with that.
I love adventure.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of going to Europe. I've been all around, but a few years ago, my wife and I decided to go to Rome.
Okay.
And I made that mistake of going to Europe because, of course, now Lebanon is a great jumping spot for Europe to go pretty much anywhere. And I realized that the two things I love most in life are my wife and traveling. So I'm really hoping that, we're going to get to we're going to Spain this year. But we used to do all the classic trips like Dominican and Jamaica.
Right.
She's been to Lebanon.
Okay.
She was, I think, the only blonde woman in all of Lebanon when I was there. This was back in the 90s, early 90s.
Right.
1998, sorry, or 1998 or 1999 she went. And like, it was funny because wherever she'd go, people would touch her hair. Because there were so few blonde people then. Like now, I mean, there's mixture of culture, but then, and I'm from Alba, like a little tiny village, nestled just outside of Tripoli. It's only like 65 or 70 kilometers from the airport, but it takes 2.5 hours to drive there.
Yeah.
Besides, Lebanon's a place that, remember, when it's cloudy out, you just drive above the clouds.
Right.
You can swim and fish, and on the same day drive up a mountain and go skiing.
Wow.
Yeah. There's nothing like driving on a highway on the mountain that has no guardrail in the middle of a cloud.
Right.
There's nothing more freeing than that. You can only see about 25, 30 feet in front of you, so you don't drive fast.
Right.
But the road is literally materializing in front of you and disappearing behind you.
That's incredible.
Incredible. Up in the mountains in Lebanon is incredible. To go up to the cedars of Lebanon, to see the Mediterranean, and to see that when I sit at my place, my dad,
travel agent.
My dad says, I used to say, Dad, you don't have any pictures anywhere in this house. And my dad said, there's my picture. Right. And he'd point out the window at the mountain that's, that we're closest to, because we live in Alba, it's the flat ground, it's all olive trees. He'd point at the mountain and he'd say, that's my picture, because it changes every hour.
Oh, yeah.
And at nighttime, because there's so many scattered villages in Lebanon, so many small villages and stuff, that it looks like a Christmas tree. Like it lights up with a bulb of lights here and a bulb of lights here and a bulb of lights here. And it's like, it's hard to describe, Like to buy even the old glass bottles of pop. Do you remember the tall, skinny?
Yes.
So when they were cold because of that thick glass, and because it was only 300 mils, like 3 or 4 drinks, it was gone.
Yeah.
That's all they have there. It's the best pop in the world. And it's like 10 cents.
Right.
I don't drink water when I'm there. I drink Orange Crush, Pepsi, and Diet Pepsi. That's all I drink It's 7-Up.
Okay.
That's all I ever can find.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I ask you if your siblings have the same
Drive
the
to
drive,
Lebanon or
not to
pull?
Lebanon, but your dad, that there's something there that's really special with you, I can tell. Do your siblings have the same?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the baby.
Okay.
So like, even when we were young, my dad would pile all 8 of us into his big white boat of a car, the Pontiac, whatever it was.
Right.
So there would be 5 of my siblings in the back, my mother and father in the front, and of course me standing because I was so tiny.
Right.
I'd be standing in between them. And my dad used to call me the big chief.
Okay.
So he'd say, "Big chief, where you want to go for?" Because we didn't eat out very often.
Right.
So it was very rare. But when we all went out in the car together, and I was in the front seat, my siblings knew that we were going to get KFC or McDonald's.
Yeah.
Even once he took us to A&W back when they had the roller skates and they'd come out and serve you at the window.
Yeah.
That was the most amazing thing in the world to a guy. So he'd be saying, "Where do you want to go, big chief?" And I would feel the nudges coming from the back seat saying, McDonald's and KFC. So we would do that. So I think that because I was the youngest and because my dad picked lawyer for me, there was no lawyer in my entire family tree.
Right.
Yeah, it made me feel a little bit more special.
And you wanted to do that. That's amazing. So I want to ask you, there's a couple of questions I ask everybody that I have.
Oh yeah? Show. You can ask me anything. You know that I'm an open book.
I know, but I'm thinking I want to explore this Lebanese thing, but maybe in another time.
Okay. You're going to have me back already. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I have an idea. Every time I talk to somebody, I get an idea.
I bet.
So
that's the Lebanese in you.
Well, I do have some in me.
Correct.
Yeah. I do. And that is a thing. Like I'm listening to you, and there's so many similarities. Like I like to do a whole bunch of different things too, and I'm wondering, if that's just part of.
That doesn't mean we have any type of disorder where
no.
It just means that we're generally
genuinely
interested in so many things.
What made you think of that?
Well, because people say that people that are attracted to a lot of things they can't decide. It's like
Oh no,
I was joking, but I'm saying that I think it's because culturally, because over there it's the same thing.
Life is just so interesting.
So interesting. Yeah. My brothers, I have 2 brothers that are both brilliant with computers. Mm-hmm. And they learned that because we didn't have anything. So they used to get old Commodore 64s that were broken. And these guys, they taught themselves how to fix them.
Right.
And to program them because that was all they could do.
Right.
So, and then my other brother was in mechanics because my father was a welder and my father was a mechanic. So of course the oldest son, my brother Simon, followed my father and got into mechanics and got into welding. And he broke free of the family business for a while and he became very successful in business. And then my father was one of the first, he had cancer all through his ribs.
Oh, okay.
And they removed it here, but they didn't get it all. And this was in 1978. And it all came back. And my father was, they gave him he gets 6 months to live. And then one of the Lebanese people found out about it, and they called, of course, another Lebanese, because they're like a network. Lebanese people are like a network.
Oh, yeah.
They called the Lebanese guy they know, and then it turned out that at the university in Toronto, they were doing this type of surgery. So they cut my father. He had the scar that went from the center of his chest all around the middle of his back, and they peeled him open and removed a bunch of ribs, and they did all that stuff. And this is actually a great story because he went through that. He came back from Toronto. I was only 7. And our place was small, so his hospital bed was our kitchen table. And the doctor told him that if he quit smoking and quit drinking, that he might have 2 years to live. And I'm not lying to you, within the first week of him being back, he got into a big fight with my mother because he gave my brother Simon, who was just about 19 at the time, $10 or $5, whatever it was, to go buy him a carton of smokes and a bottle of liquor because if he was going to go out, he was tiny. My father never would take any money from the government. He would never sign up for any type of assistance. He was a proud guy.
Right.
And my father smoked 3 packs a day and drank ouzo for 40 years. The man lived 40 years. I still remember the surgeon didn't believe because of the ribs, he couldn't lift anything with this arm. My father was a marksman. He was a hunter. He hunted deer, moose. He was a camp chef. The surgeon that did the work flew up from Toronto
Right.
to go hunting with my father because he didn't believe that my father could still shoot accurately with one arm. My father then, after that time,
Right.
shot with one arm rather than two, and everybody wanted to go hunting with him because he would get their deer for them or get their,
Right.
and then he'd skin it and cut it up and cook it. And we used to call it the witch's brew out at the camp. You open a cupboard and it's just got all these jars of Lebanese spices and stuff that you wouldn't even know what you were dealing with. And he'd cook like a maniac at the camp.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
He was.
Yeah.
And, I think that is what you kind of need when you're a first generation. Like, I have no doubt that your great grandfather had that same level of amazing. Because how do you do it?
I'm sure he did.
How do you pick up?
I don't know.
And just leave a culture as strong as that one? Everything is shame and doubt. And I call Lebanon haram when I'm there half the time because everything is haram.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? You guys are the most resilient, efforts out there.
Yeah, but they have that kind of.
Of course. You don't want anybody to think that everything is too good because it's almost bad mojo and it's going to make it bad.
Right.
But when they party, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. No,
they
I
party.
know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to Richmond. Someday I'm going to go to Lebanon, but I'm going to go to Richmond because
I hope that you
I will do both because I don't think I have any family left in Lebanon, maybe a couple of people.
Well, if you're going to be in Lebanon and I'm there, let me know. We at least got to I'm going to take you out for a nice dinner.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I would love that. But I know there's a lot of family in Richmond. I got to go visit them because there's lots of stories there. Anyway,
absolutely.
Lots of stories. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I ask everybody that I have on the show.
Sure.
One is, what makes you feel most alive?
Mm-hmm. I think my family.
Family, yeah. I have no doubt.
Yeah, because they're the ones that make me laugh, and they're the ones that make me cry, and they're the ones that I want to do things for. Like my daughter is my oldest child is my daughter. I have two kids.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I always said that she's either going to use her superpowers for good or evil someday because she showed signs of advanced, to me, logical reasoning at way too young of an age.
Okay.
My wife actually did a book up and a book up about, it's called The Shit That the Kid Says. Because my daughter used to say the most, when she was 5, she told me she had a baby in her belly. To give you an example, and I'm like, oh, you got a baby in your tummy? Mm-hmm. She said, no, Papa, it's in my uterus. She was 5.
Right.
Okay. She excels at the weirdest things. Like she can make mini Play-Doh things that look like real food, but the size of a quarter.
Kind of like her dad, maybe.
So she's the only person I cannot win an argument with.
Okay.
It's awful. She's had her way with me all of this time. And now she's 19.
Wow.
I was buying, she definitely, but
so your family.
There's no U-Hauls behind hearses.
Well, this is true.
Right. And my parents really wanted us to earn it. But how do you, if you have the availability and those are your kids, it's ironic that we want our kids to be like us, but they've never suffered what we've suffered, which is what makes us who we are.
This is true.
So I believe in just kind of guiding them and trying to be
there comes a certain point, I think, when they get a certain age, we can't really parent them anymore.
Yeah.
We're loving and wise.
We lose our wisdom in time. We gain a lot of wisdom in life, but eventually our decisions and view on the world are not reflective of what's going on in the world.
No, this is true.
But I'm a little ways from that, and I think you are too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but that's what I think family is the thing, yeah.
And then you're going to like this last question.
Sure.
I think. So because I come from a cooking background, so my podcast is called The Soul's Kitchen. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, what's your ingredient? What's your secret ingredient for life? It can be food.
I don't ignore the things that draw me to them. I recently learned, and if you know Lebanese food, then you'd know the shish barak.
Yes.
Every Lebanese woman makes that to bring their boys home.
Okay.
Because it's one of the most amazing meals out there. And I haven't met a Lebanese man that doesn't love shish barak, which is basically dumplings and yogurt.
Yeah.
Well, I recently learned how to make it. And as far as I know, I'm the only Lebanese guy in the Maritimes that makes shish barak. And I'm not going to say I've mastered it because it's sometimes hit and miss, but I've gotten so close to it that I'm truly I'm so happy that I can take that little tiny piece forward because there's so many pieces that I can't.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've been recently learning how to make kibbeh and some other stuff. I make it for my friends at the camp. I have a camp machine.
Okay.
And we do that type of stuff. So I think that the biggest thing is that I don't ignore I try not to ignore anything that pulls me.
Okay, so you get a little.
I really wanted to
ping.
learn how to make shish badok one day, and I didn't ignore that. So I decided that, I mean, I've been asking my mother for years. My wife was going to go over and make it with her, but I'm not sure if you know when Lebanese women start cooking, but it's about 2 a.m.
Yeah.
When I was
so much food to make.
when I was a kid, I used to wake up at 5 a.m. and the day's meal was ready. Like
Right.
like kusa, it was
everything's
done.
there. Yeah. The table was full, and now that I don't know how they made that food, but they did a lot of it together. Because quick little story. I remember when they would, the salad sleet with the dandelions. My grandmother and all her friends, Mrs. Swede and all of the women, they're all widows, so they're all wearing black. They're in our front yard, all bent over with their, we used to laugh as kids because they're picking the dandelions and putting them in their skirt to make this huge, but they did a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
The women I did anyway.
And I lived the same.
Yeah.
My mother, when she came to Canada, couldn't cook.
Right, okay.
My Aunt Georgette, my Aunt
Everybody
Noelle,
would cook together.
they'd come together and they'd cook.
And then they'd take some of it home.
Yeah.
I remember my grandmother making fatoya and with all of the women and all of the spinach and all of the
hundreds
dough.
of them. Hundreds and hundreds
and
of them.
And they would hang the dough on those clothes drying racks.
Yeah.
Like to rest while they were making. Anyway, it was fascinating.
Did you ever have your parents bring home a live animal? Because as you know, in Lebanon,
lamb
Saturday was a big deal.
My dad was really great at finding butchers. We never did the live animal thing, but we always found like a farm or something that
because their lamb's got to be fresh. My dad used to bring a lamb home.
Okay, yeah.
And then we lived right behind the church, the Lebanese church. And the priest, I was always joked that he spent more time at my house than he did at the church because he was there every day playing backgammon, blackgammon.
Yes.
Backgammon, they played all day.
My family, they played cards.
Cook. My dad would get a sheep. He had a professional Hobart machine in our old beat up garage.
Right.
And a sausage machine. And over those 2 or 3 days, I would remember like at least 100 Lebanese people would circle through there and they'd stop and they'd have the liver with the salt and the cases of ouzo. And like one of my most prized possessions in Lebanon is my father has a few of the casks of the old ouzo that he made, he would have made. And when I went there when I was graduating from high school, my first year of law, I went there and I made it with him.
Oh, nice.
And I made it once before with him when I was young. And one of the casks was from the ouzo that I made with him.
Oh, cool.
So every time I come back from Lebanon, I very preciously remove one small amount from it and I bring it home. Because I don't drink it very much, but it's good for sore teeth.
Okay.
It's good when you're out of gas.
Right.
It's good if you need a little bit of cologne. Lebanese men, they always dab a little on themselves when they're done. And it's an amazing drink. It'll catch up to you really quickly though. So I bring a little bit home every time and I have the way they used to distill it and the way they currently distill it. So they'd run it twice. Like when they first started making ouzo way back, the guys would only distill it twice because they wanted it to be so strong because they would work out in these crazy environmental. And then later on, they started refining it 3 times. So you're reducing the ouzo down.
Right.
So I got to videotape it. I got to take pictures of it. Yeah, I can play this stuff back in my head like a video.
Yeah.
I still remember adding the apple at the end. I can still remember, taking the potato and they just take a potato and they're making it and they'll wrap them up and they'll throw them down on the coals because they're making it over a day or two.
Right.
And they wrap it up, and then every once in a while you see them just roll a potato out, and they'll eat the potato.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. And you're sitting on, you got a 1/4 acre of land, but you have your pomegranate tree, and you've got your orange tree, and you got your lemon tree, and you've got your grapes, and
everything.
This is what always blew me away. No matter like you always get all this stuff, and no matter where you went. This has changed a lot in Lebanon. Like back in the day, you couldn't walk down the street without 20 people inviting you in, didn't even know you to sit down and
have something to eat.
Funny, economically, that country is ruined. So you really don't have that. The one thing that Lebanese people live for is to dayif, to give to others. There's nothing that Lebanese people that I've ever noticed enjoy more than sharing a table and then being the host.
This is true. It's funny.
And there's a lot less of that going on, I think, in the Middle East now.
And probably, but that's something I love to do. I love to have people for dinner. It's funny. I was
talking
to my daughter on the phone the other day, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. What I should do with this person or that person." And I just said, "Have them over for dinner." And she said, "Mom, I don't enjoy that as much as you do." I thought that was funny.
But you learned that from your parents.
Well, I did learn it. They did. They did. We were always having people over, but you either love that or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think I just love that.
I love it. When
Very
I go to the camp
natural
with
for
my
me to
friends now,
have
I don't let
people
anybody
over.
bring stuff. I do all the cooking.
do it
I do
all.
bring all
Yeah.
the food. I love to feed people.
Yeah.
Of
I
course,
like the same.
and I'm
It's
way more
a-
uncomfortable being hosted than I am being
Yeah.
host.
I gotcha. Well, Jack Youssef,
Yeah.
lawyer, Lebanese man.
Yeah.
Thank
Lebanese
you.
man.
Thank you so much.
You're
This
very
has been a
welcome.
really great
Yeah, it's
conversation. And who knows what will come of it. And I
Yeah.
want to hear about your trip when you get back.
I'm leaving for Lebanon in less than 48 hours.
Cool.
And yeah, and
All
I have
right.
an agenda and a routine. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Very good. I love it. I'm just going to exit full screen here and we're going to say goodbye for now. And thank you again.
Awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Give us a Lebanese saying for the end. What would
Um,
we say? What would your dad say when he said goodbye to you?
he'd say, Allah ma'ak la tinsa immak, which means God bless you, don't forget your mother.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Excellent.